Hey everybody, welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays. My name's Sung Soo, and today we're actually going to be talking about the War of the Monarch, also known as the Dusk Till Dawn pre-release. Now, I know I promised you some more Icelander videos, and we have another one coming next week actually about Blizzard, but there's a lot of hype about the pre-release, so I thought I'd take the time to kind of talk about it. Levia has been a pet hero. So first of all, I do want to say that this coming weekend, this video is dropping on a Friday, we have pre-release. Now, this is a supplemental set, which means it's not a draftable set, so we're going to be drafting Monarch. And I think drafting Monarch is interesting because that's also one of the formats being played at Nationals, and a lot of people have been reintroduced to one of my favorite heroes, and that is, of course, Levia, Shadowborn Abomination. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just a real high-level overview of who she was previously, who she is now, kind of with a high level with these new cards, some things to be aware of, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into these things as we go. I do want to take a minute and introduce Franklin. He's right here. He's my turtle. He's gotten a lot of love. He's the best kind of office pet you can ask for. I really do enjoy his company. He's a Diamondback Terrapin, and eventually we'll give him a little more love. But that is Franklin. He would appreciate it if you would like, if you'd sub, and if you have any questions about Franklin or about me, please just leave them in the comment section and we'll get back to you. All right, getting back to Levia. So who is Levia? She's at a high level, she's a brute. She's got 40 life, she's got 4 intellect, and she kills herself. And that is basically a high-level encapsulation of what Levia is. When people hear brute, they immediately think of Rhinar. There are, in fact, 2 of them in CC, 3 of them in Blitz, the format that shall not be named. And her main issue was when things go wrong for her, she literally kills herself because of the blood debt mechanic. Now, a lot of heroes have bad turns, but the only one in the game that caused you to die was, in fact, Levia, and it's because of this blood debt mechanic. So, while blood debt is, while this card is in your banish zone, at the beginning of your end phase, lose 1 damage. And that's not so bad, but what's going to happen is you're going to get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards in there, and then it starts getting pretty awkward. Now, she has some incredible cards, some really efficient cards that she can send through, but it all comes with this blood debt negative tax. And eventually that blood debt kind of becomes an issue, because if they can strip your hand, if you don't have a way to banish something, if they can, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that you can get there, and then Levia dies. So I've really enjoyed her. I played her, I don't know, a decent amount. I've never won anything big with her, taken out a couple armies, of course, and it feels great when you win with a hero that everyone thinks is a meme, right? I mean, long-time Azalea mains can tell you that, right? The level of satisfaction you get from something is directly correlated to the amount of effort and kind of the journey you put into it. So playing Levia previously was extremely rewarding for that reason. And also she has some really complex play lines that I think are really cool, right? There's a couple different ways to play her. You can do the traditional brute shell using Blood Rush Bellows. She brings, before this set, 4 additional blue 6s. So that's an interesting dynamic there. Obviously Bellows needs to discard that 6 in order to get the +2 and to draw some cards. So there was that. Because of those blue 6s, you could also run a Berserk package. So if you really want to swing for the moon, you could run a Berserk package out there using her. She also has this recursion package where she's playing a bunch of cards from her banish zone. While you play those cards, they banish more cards. You basically loop through your graveyard and you propose this really interesting fatigue loop. That's a pretty interesting way to play. So those are kind of the old archetypes. You basically had Berserk, classic brute, for lack of a better term, with Bellows, and then a banish zone recursion package there. And I think those are predominantly true still, but the biggest thing that we got is we ended up getting Levia Redeemed and Blazafet Levia Consumed. And this is one card with 2 different sides. It's a legendary, and if you think you're going to be playing Levia, you should definitely pick her up. So this is an action, right? Turn all cards in your banish zone face down, transform into Levia Redeemed. Activate this ability only while this is in your inventory and you have 13 or more cards with blood debt in your banish zones. And then it says cards you own lose blood debt. So there's a lot of text on this card, and I want to break them down step by step. So first, obviously, an action has to happen during your turn. Great. Okay, when we transform into Levia Redeemed, what happens? Well, we literally set our character to this. There's a chance we're going to lose a lot of life and go to 8. There's a chance we're going to gain some life and set that to 8. But either way, we're setting our value here to this hero life total of 8. It says you can activate this ability only while this is in your inventory. And some people ask, well, what is your inventory? Your inventory is your entire deck. So it's what you present in the sideboard. This card is going to be a sideboard card. You can run it out. It's basically like Karn, the Great Creator, grabbing like the, I don't know, ensnaring bridge and playing it out, right? So I actually don't know if it was Karn the Great Creator, but there was a Karn that grabbed things out of your sideboard, and that's basically what Levia is doing here. Like, you can use this card basically from outside of your presented 60. And then if you have 13 or more cards with Blood Debt in your banish zone. Now, for those of you who have played Levia, that's not hard to do. Basically, the normal thing is I'm going to block, I'm going to attack, cards hit the graveyard, I'm going to banish them with attacks. Things are going to say, like we can look at Soul Harvester real quick. As an additional cost to play Harvest, banish 6 cards from your graveyard, right? It gains +1 for each card with Blood Debt this way, right? So that's how we're going to fill our graveyard up. And we have to get 13 of them in there. And then basically this turns Blood Debt off for the rest of the game. So what this says is it's a lot harder for me to die to Blood Debt. I would basically have to be negligent almost with it in order to die to Blood Debt. Now, this is an action. And the one thing I want to highlight here is there's no go again, right? Our entire action, if we only have one action point to the turn, would be to transform. Now, that might be great. It stops us from dying to Blood Debt, but we're definitely going to lose some tempo here. We're going to have to pivot back into it in the future. Obviously, we have Scab Skins. That might be a way to do it. We could also do this after a go again attack, so we could still present some damage and then transform on the other side. So again, it's pretty cool, really cool ability. I just wanted to break down kind of the text a little bit here. I know there's a lot of different words going here. I've heard a lot of locals kind of confused on that. So next we have Blazafet Levia Consumed. So again, we have 2 different forms we can kind of get to. Blazafet was an ally in the beginning, kind of cool. And you can still play Doomsday, but I don't know if you want to because there's some Blood Debt considerations here. So it says, while this is in your inventory, when Blood Debt reduces your life to 13, you may transform. So if they push you under 13, you obviously cannot have this trigger. If your life is really high, you can't have this trigger as well. So there's an interesting timing mechanism as to when you want to transform into Blazzy here. So you're going to want to be keeping your life to the low. One of the things we talked about in Icelander was mirroring or staying just under our opponent's life total to ensure things like Heart of Findle are turned on, Findle's Fighting Spirit, and Scar for Scar. And Levia is going to do the same thing if our goal is to end up with a Levia Consumed deck here, right? We're going to want to have our life total tick down to that 13 number and transform into Blazzy when we want to, as opposed to when our opponent pushes us to, or there's a chance that we honestly just miss it. And we'll talk about this in the future dojo. I think you should be playing Sigil in Blazafet in order to give you that kind of life control. But anyway, moving on from that, it's once each turn, what happens after you transform, right? Well, your life would be set to 13. Obviously, we have something there, right? Once per turn, you may play a card with Blood Debt from your banish zone. That's really cool, right? We have like built-in recursion around Blazafet. So I mean that's amazing. When a card is put into your banish zone, turn it face down. Well, okay, that's a little bit awkward. Face down cards don't have any text, so we can't play those cards. So there's a little bit of a give and take there. And if you would lose life from Blood Debt, instead banish the top card of your deck. Okay, so how do we actually play out the cards that we have down there? Well, he doesn't flip over any of the cards that are already down there. So all the cards that we have down there are the ones that we're going to be able to replay, right? Future cards that end up in the banish zone, well, unfortunately, we kind of lose those abilities there. So Blazafet, another interesting way to play. Again, we want to be in control of our life total here. We want to be getting it down. So Blazafet is this interesting kind of recursion package. I think you could do other things, but that's where my brain kind of went to first. Levia Redeemed is just, hey, I'm playing normal Levia, right? And then we talked about it. There's 3 different ways to play normal Levia, but I don't kill myself anymore. And not killing yourself is a huge plus. If you haven't played Levia, I don't think you've killed yourself in this game. And hey, quite frankly, maybe you haven't been living. But again, Levia can kill herself, and this honestly turns that off. So 2 completely different transforms here, 2 different decks to kind of build around. And I think those are the big thing to go through here. Now, there's a whole bunch of other cards that we'll go into, and I don't want to go into them now because, again, I'm trying to keep my video succinct. And the one item I did want to talk about is Hellhammer. We used this as a Blood Debt action before, and a lot of people look at this and go, why would I ever use this card? Well, let's talk about the good. It's a 2-for-6 weapon. That's a great rate, right? 2-for-6 is phenomenal, right? We're normally talking about like a Nothos, right? That's like a 3-for-4. Sometimes it's a 3-for-6. Now, okay, when this combat exchange closes, if this attack, banish it. Okay, that obviously seems really bad. So realistically, we're only attacking with Hellhammer once. Okay, so is a weapon slot worth only attacking with once per game? And the answer is maybe. Now, one of the important things to remember with Levia, who's grown-up Levia, is if a card with 6 or more power has been put in your banish zone this turn, cards you own lose Blood Debt during the end phase. So a card doesn't have to be an attack. So Hellhammer attacking and banishing itself turns off Blood Debt. it gives us that safety net in order to turn off Blood Debt while we're big Levia to save us an amount of health. And 6 damage is nothing to sneeze at then, right? We can go back to our turn, right? We can just pitch a yellow, pitch a blue, we can pitch a red, pull Tunic if we're running Tunic, and we can play this Hellhammer to turn off Blood Debt. I think this card is very powerful in the right decks, very powerful in the right shell. Obviously, if we're playing a Blood Rush Bellows, we want to present Claws still, but if we're not, if we're playing some recursion deck, if we're playing a slower deck, if we're playing a pummel version of the deck or something like that, I would definitely recommend checking out Hellhammer. I think it's kind of underrated, and it's one of the cards I want to pick up this weekend, hopefully from some of my prize packs from the Monarch draft. So that's basically all I wanted to cover with Levia here, right? Levia, sometimes it's great, sometimes she kills herself. She's a brute. There's some built-in randomization there, right? We have 2 options to transform this person, right? We have Levia Redeemed. Levia Redeemed, in order to transform, is an activated ability who has a threshold of Blood Debt cards. And what happens? What's the benefit? Well, we don't die from Blood Debt anymore. We don't have Blood Debt in our cards anymore. Blazafet, Levia Consumed, allows us a recursion engine outside of the existing recursion engines we already have. What's the negative? Well, we lose new cards going into the banish zone and the ability to kind of reuse those. So the timing of Blazafet has to be right. When Blazafet flips, you want a bunch of stuff in your graveyard, not necessarily in your banish zone. And the last thing I'll say is Hellhammer. What does Hellhammer do? Well, Hellhammer allows us to present 6 on a 1-card hand and turn off Blood Debt, saving us potentially, 5, 10, 12 life. I do want to shout out Man Sant, who is kind of the Levia saint. He runs a fantastic YouTube channel. He's a great guy. I'm a patron of his. You can go check out his videos at Man Sant. But again, we will be doing more Levia Dojo videos. This, again, I wanted to keep it high level. I wanted to introduce you to Levia. We're going to dive into one of the decks I really love about it. I'm also kind of just waiting for talishar to get fixed. The TTS game I recorded was almost 90 minutes long. It's kind of painful to watch. I spent a lot of time editing it, and I decided I'm just going to wait for talishar. So we're going to talk about cards, talk about the Levia cards we're excited about. So we're going to run Icelander, Levia, and some Grand Archive content. Thank you so much for tuning in. Franklin back there would appreciate any likes, comments, or subscribes. And until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.